John Cameron's wages.
John Chancellor.
Election threat. Political parties in Iraq call for a delay in the critical election there. Tonight, what might happen next? Danger on board, passenger jets and dangerous cargo. A warning tonight from the government that safety's at risk. 'Tis the season. The holiday shopping rush officially begins. What can you expect beyond long lines at the malls and stores this season? And true grit after back-to-back storms. Finding the muscle and determination to save one Florida town.
From NBC News World Headquarters in New York, this is NBC Nightly News with Tom Brokaw. Reporting tonight, Brian Williams.
Good evening. On this Friday after Thanksgiving, we begin with the conflict on the minds of so many Americans as we enter this year's holiday season, the war in Iraq. The U.S. military has had its share of victories of late, and yet violence on the ground there continues. And today came a plea to put off the Iraqi elections, which had been the stated goal of the Bush administration in its effort toward a more stable Iraq. NBC's Charles Sabine has our report from Baghdad tonight. Now to the other front in Iraq, the fighting in Fallujah. We hear rightfully a lot about the fighting units and the brave house-to-house search for insurgents. We don't hear as much about others in harm's way, those credited with keeping the American casualty numbers down. NBC's Richard Engel spent this day at the Marine Field Hospital in Fallujah.
NBC News, Fallujah.
Tonight, the continuing political stalemate in Ukraine is spoken in this country tonight about air safety. It has to do with just what's stowed beneath where the passengers sit, the cargo that planes carry. On this long weekend, when more than 4 million Americans are traveling by air, a new government report says there's not enough being done to screen the cargo holds. Here is NBC's Pete Williams.
Whether pushed through on purpose or just slipped in by accident, a new government report says improper hazardous cargo can have disastrous results. It was a fire from incorrectly packaged cargo, for example, that brought down a value jet plane in 1996, killing all 110 on board.
It's a huge problem both for safety and for security. If you don't know what's on an aircraft at any stage of flight, you pose significant risk to the cargo, to the aircraft itself, and to the passengers.
It's perfectly legal to send hazardous materials by air, things that could be dangerous if improperly packaged or handled. But today's report from the Transportation Department Inspector General says federal regulators have no idea how much of it is shipped every day. And when violations are discovered, it says, the Federal Aviation Administration moves too slowly to seek fines or criminal penalties. Checked and carry-on baggage is a problem area too, it says, revealing that more than 8,000 pounds of hazardous material was found in passenger bags in just the final 6 weeks of last year.
Please have your photo IDs.
But the report says the government never follows up and has no way of identifying.
The financial markets closed early for the holiday weekend, and both major markets barely moved the needle. The Dow up about 2 points, NASDAQ down just slightly, about half a point in the end. For the week, the Dow posted a gain of 65, while the NASDAQ was in the plus column by 31 points. Tonight, there is evidence that America's retailers may have ample reason to enjoy the coming retail season. On this traditional so-called Black Friday, known for robust early Christmas sales, it's beginning to look a lot like the shopping seasons of old. Here is NBC's Ann Thompson.
It's America's version of the running of the bulls. Shoppers in a Birmingham mall squeezed through the door and over each other at 1 in the morning.
It was chaos. I mean, total chaos.
The crowd grew as the temperature fell at a Denver Best Buy.
Those people got here at 3. We're late. We got here at 5.
Long lines formed from coast to coast as the curtain rose on a season that's expected to be solid, but not spectacular.
This is going to be very similar to last year. It's what I call the carbon copy Christmas.
The projection, a 3 to 4% increase in sales. Consumers are expected to spend $220 billion, encouraged by what appears to be an improving economy, but held back by high energy prices. Today, armed with a list, Rich and Ann Schultz went looking for bargains.
40% off, Annie. This is what he likes.
And I got more coupons.
With a second child, the Chicago couple plans to spend more this year.
I do look at the price, but if I really like something, I'm going to buy it.
In fact, analysts think quality, not quantity, will be this year's hallmark.
Yet for all of today's initial insanity, so far there appears to be no one must-have gift, no one must-have toy on consumers' radar. And for retailers, that's a concern.
Terry Lundgren is CEO of Federated Department Stores, overseeing Macy's, Bloomingdale's, and 5 regional chains.
So Terry, when you walk through the store today, what are you looking for?
I'm looking for numbers of customers. I'm looking to make sure that the customers are being serviced properly by all of our associates. I'm looking for bags. The smaller the better, by the way.
But consumers looking for deep discounts may be disappointed.
Last year we marked down cashmere early because it was a holiday season. Well, we sold out. We didn't have it for the prior 2 weeks before Christmas. So we've learned our lesson. We're going to have a little more courage this year.
As retailers try to hold the line on cutting prices, hoping customers won't hold back. Ann Thompson, NBC News, New York.
And up next, as we continue this post-Thanksgiving Friday night, a related story in depth tonight, violent video games. Shopping in the midst of a culture war, the new warnings about the games your kids may be playing. And later on, Tom Brokaw continues his look back on the events on his watch. Tonight, the tumultuous years of social change.
The whole world is watching.
8 years he reported on events that changed the world. Tom Brokaw, Eyewitness to History. A special Dateline, NBC Tonight, 9/8 Central.
NBC News in depth tonight, violent video games. More than 40% of all Americans say they expect to give or receive a video game this year. But a new warning is out about what they all might be doing to the kids. Here is NBC's Tom Costello.
While they make up only 10% of video game sales,
from the worst effects of the worst video games.
the message we should all watch. NBC News, New York.
Up next after a break, recovery and resilience. After the brutal hurricane season, one town celebrates a holiday they say stands for hope. It has been a holiday unlike any other for those hard hit by a hurricane season unlike any other in modern times. In some places, that means the rebuilding barely stopped for Thanksgiving. NBC's Mark Potter tonight from Punta Gorda, Florida, on the search for the strength to carry on.
3.5 months after Hurricane Charlie and hundreds of millions of dollars. NBC News, Punta Gorda, Florida.
When we come back, what a long, strange trip it's been. Decades of monumental social change, as reported by Tom Brokaw.
Monday and NBC.
This has been and will continue to be an emotional time around here. In the countdown to his farewell from this very chair on NBC Nightly News next week, Tom Brokaw has been looking back at the stories and trends he's covered in his more than 3 decades in broadcast journalism. Tonight, the power of people to change this nation and the world, the social trends that have been the engines of change and national trauma.
Well, I was on duty in the newsroom in Omaha when the bells began to ring on the wire service machines indicating there was a bulletin of some kind, and I just simply announced what had happened. He was this dashing, romantic, younger figure, and then to have him brutally murdered in that way was such a traumatic experience for everyone. You can say that the assassination of John F. Kennedy led to the presidency of Lyndon Johnson, who was uncertain about what we should do about Vietnam.
American infantrymen cut their way through dense jungles today.
That led to the enormous upheaval in this country politically, the protests that went on in 1968. Kids burning the flags, and the rage and the anger on the part of a lot of the demonstrators was so palpable, and you can see it in the pictures. You have the countercultural revolution building at the same time, and it was not just about kids in tie-dye shirts and smoking dope and showing up at Woodstock. It really was an international political revolution in a lot of ways.
For the love generation, which is often unloved.
And the fact is that it had some lasting effect on the country in terms of the generation raising its hand and saying, you have to listen to us as well.
It's morning again in America, and under the leadership of President Reagan.
Ronald Reagan put a sunny disposition on conservatism. He had some tough things to say about what was going on the left and about what was going on in the streets and on college campuses. But he was always a guy who was talking about a brighter future, a sunnier day.
We can meet our destiny, and that destiny to build a land here that will be for all mankind a shining city on a hill.
I appreciate it.
This administration has got to take care of the problems of America at home, but no president of the United States after the Cold War can simply walk away from the problems that are gripping the world. You just don't have that option.
It is a scene of great chaos in downtown Oklahoma City at this hour. When I first heard that there had been a terrible explosion, it's got to be natural gas or it's got to be some other cause than terrorism. A city asking the question, who would do this? This is the first great test of the new century for this nation, for its new president.
I can hear you, the rest of the world hears you, and the people who knocked these buildings down will hear all of us soon.
We need to be smarter about how we wage a war on terror.
You cannot change positions in this war on terror if you expect to win, and I expect to win. It's necessary we win.
It appears what we have tonight, Tim, are two great conflicts on the American political landscape, if you will, two seismic shifts going on.
I guess what it does remind me is all that the country has been through. A lot of it trauma, a lot of it triumph. And for all of our disparate parts here, geographically and culturally and politically, we find a way to make it work.
Some thoughts on our world from Tom Brokaw, and a reminder about tonight's Dateline special. A look back at Tom's many years of reporting for this news organization. That is tonight at 9, 8 Central. That is Nightly News for this Friday. I'm Brian Williams in New York tonight. Good night and have a good weekend.
Tonight, they lost their lives in the line of duty.
John Cameron's wages. Brett Huntley. David Brady. John Chanson.
Travel troubles,